Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a world where secrets are sealed behind steel doors, where the hum of fluorescent lights masks quiet suffering, and where the most terrifying experiments didn't happen in some horror movie lab, but under your own government's name. You're going to walk into a building that officially doesn't exist, flip through files that were never meant to survive, and sit in a chair people would pay money to forget. You probably won't survive this, at least not with your sanity intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down a linoleum hallway, the kind with dull yellow lighting that flickers just enough to make your eyes itch. The air smells faintly of mildew and old coffee. You've seen this place before, sort of in a dozen bureaucratic buildings. Maybe an old hospital or a DMV office from the 70s. But there's something off. There are no signs, no friendly human resources, this way posters, just one long hallway, lined with closed doors. The ceiling buzzes, the floor squeaks. You're not even sure how you got in. You pause at a heavy steel door. No number, just a thumbprint scanner. And conveniently, it works for you. The door hisses open, revealing something straight out of a Cold War fever dream, reel-to-reel tape recorders spinning silently, metal filing cabinets with black and red warning stickers, and a clipboard lying on a desk labeled simply Prague Artichoke. The CIA loved its code names. They had a whole garden of them: Artichoke, Bluebird, MKUltra. Why Artichoke? Maybe because peeling back the layers never got you any closer to the truth. Historians still argue whether these code names were meant to confuse, distract, or amuse the few who were in the know. Whatever the reason, Project Artichoke wasn't about vegetables. It was about minds, how to unpeel them, overwrite them, and sometimes break them. You move through the room, brushing your fingers along a row of switchboards. They hum quietly, like sleeping animals. A reel of tape plays back a conversation in broken French, something about doses and compliance. There's static, then silence. A dusty logbook lies open on the desk. Entry July 7th, 1953. Subject not 21. Dose administered without consent. Result loss of sense of time. Severe paranoia. Violent outburst. You shiver, but not from the air conditioning. There is none, just a sense that someone, somewhere, still listens. That's when you hear it footsteps above you. Not on a second floor. This place has no second floor. You look up. Nothing. Then you look at the wall to your right and notice a panel slightly ajar. Behind it, wires, microphones, maybe even a camera. This isn't a lab. It's a listening room. And you just walked into someone's memory. Back in the real world. Well, as real as it gets, there's a faded photograph pinned to the wall. 5 men in suits, 1 woman in a nurse's uniform, all gathered around what looks like a dentist chair, except there's a leather strap on the armrest and another on the headrest, and the man in the middle has a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. That's Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a name you'll want to remember, known to some as the Black Sorcerer of the CIA, to others as just Sid. He had a PhD in chemistry and a federal license to experiment. You can almost hear his soft voice explaining the merits of LSD, the benefits of amnesia, and the best methods to induce total obedience in non-voluntary participants. Fun fact: Gottlieb was a devout Catholic, a folk dancer, and a goat farmer in his spare time. Fringe tidbit, maybe, but it's those contradictions that make this story real. You're not in a horror film, you're in history, now. One mainstream truth in 1949 as the Cold War's chill crept over America. The CIA grew obsessed with one terrifying possibility. What if the Soviets had cracked mind control? What if our enemies could brainwash soldiers, flip agents, erase memories America couldn't afford to fall behind? And so, naturally, we did what we do best. We threw money, scientists, and zero ethical oversight at the problem. Enter the Office of Scientific Intelligence, buried deep in CIA headquarters. Their mission: to explore special interrogation techniques, truth drugs, and something called psychochemical control. You hear that term whispered in the logbook margins, in the briefings recorded on dusty reels. It's never defined. That's how you know it's serious. The hallway behind you creaks. You turn, but nothing's there. Just a sliver of cold air, as if a door opened a little too quickly somewhere behind the wall. You sit at the desk, thumbing through one more file. It's handwritten in jagged script. Subject number 3, target foreign operative. Method combined hypnosis and chemical exposure. Outcome unknown. Subject disappeared. File closed. Did they vanish, or were they disappeared? Historians still argue whether the CIA ever succeeded in creating a controllable assassin, the so-called Manchurian candidate, but the lab notes suggest they certainly tried. Some claimed they were halfway there. You reach into a drawer. There's a small brown vial, no label. The glass is cool to the touch. The liquid inside glimmers faintly under the buzzing light. What would you do if you were the agent here, the real agent? Would you take a sip, smash it, hide it in your sock for later analysis? Or maybe you'd do what so many before you did, follow orders. Because that's the trick, isn't it, if they can convince you to obey? Even when your gut says run, they don't need to control your mind, they already own it. A soft thump echoes through the vent, then another, rhythmic, like someone walking in time with your heartbeat. Or worse, their heartbeat synced with yours. You stand, pressing your ear to the wall. There's a whisper, not words, just static that seems to form patterns your brain almost recognizes. Then it stops, but the clipboard on the desk, remember, that is now flipped to a new page. You didn't touch it, and it says, ready for subject to Lumute 27. You don't know who that is, but your hand's already on the doorknob, and it turns far too easily. The door swings open before you finish turning the handle. For a half second, you're braced for alarms or guards, or maybe just a stern receptionist with a clipboard and a bored expression. But what greets you is silence and a hallway, darker than the one behind you. The walls here are tiled in pale green, the kind of retro color that screams hospital but whispers trauma. You walk slowly, your steps soft against worn linoleum. It smells faintly of rubbing alcohol, chalk dust, and something else sour, earthy, like old sweat soaked into fabric that was never meant to be washed. The hum of hidden wiring follows you like a nervous pet. One light overhead flickers violently as you pass, and for a blink, your shadow stretches impossibly long down the corridor, like someone's following you from behind. You turn nothing, of course. There's a door on your left now. Unlike the last, this one has a nameplate DR. Delgado. The name tickles something at the back of your brain, like a high school textbook you barely skimmed before the quiz. Jose Manuel Rodriguez Delgado, Spanish-born neuroscientist, famous or infamous for implanting electrodes in people's brains and claiming he could control their emotions, thoughts, even their will. He once made a bull freeze mid-charge with a push of a button. No joke. Historians still argue whether Delgado was a genius ahead of his time or just another pawn in the CIA's psych lab playground. You push the door open. The room looks like a cross between a dentist's office and a vintage Radio Shack. There's a padded chair in the center, elevated slightly on a platform, with thick leather restraints curling like sleeping snakes at the wrists and ankles. An ashtray on the side table overflows with filterless cigarette butts. Next to it, a half-eaten sandwich fossilized under wax paper. But it's the wall of monitors that really draws your attention. Black and white video screens, most of them dark, but one flickers to life as you step closer. Grainy footage, a young man, maybe 25, strapped into the very chair in front of you, electrodes glued to his temples, eyes wide, lips trembling, a soft voice, male, calm, familiar, asks him gently, "Do you still believe your mother is real?" The man twitches, shakes his head. The screen fuzzes and cuts to black. You swallow, the taste of metal creeping onto your tongue. The coffee cup beside the monitor is still warm. You're not alone in this place. There's a file open on the desk, paper, yellowed, and covered in meticulous handwriting. Dr. Delgado's notes. He describes electrical stimulation to the amygdaloid complex, a brain region linked to fear and memory. The goal: erase trauma, or rather, overwrite it. One patient, a soldier with shell shock, reported feeling peaceful even while watching footage of bombings. Another forgot his own name for 3 days. Quirky tidbit: Delgado once proposed that with enough funding, he could build a psycho-civilized society where violence would be surgically removed from the population. Utopian dream or dystopian nightmare? You decide. You reach into the drawer of Delgado's desk and find something small and smooth. A silver capsule inside, a single microchip, old by today's standards, but cutting edge in the 1960s. There's a note taped to it. Subject 10, obedience trigger. Your skin crawls, not because of what it is, but because of what it isn't. It's not part of a sci-fi movie. It's real, built by real people who had real meetings about using it. You hear a soft creak behind you. Spin, and there he is, a man in a white lab coat, mid-40s, maybe older, smiling, but his eyes are glassy, vacant. You try to speak, but the words don't come. He steps forward, 1, 2, 3 measured paces. You blink, and he's gone. You whirl again, nothing. Just the empty chair and the warm coffee mug. The sandwich now completely unwrapped. The file still lies open. You force yourself to keep reading. One entry catches your eye. Patient E induced hallucination of the observer reported seeing a man in white coat who spoke in riddles and vanished upon confrontation. repeated in multiple patients. Possible side effect of stimulation or something else. The room tilts slightly. Maybe it's your nerves, or maybe you're breathing something invisible. There are no windows, no clocks. Time feels sticky here, like you've been in this moment for too long. You leave the room, heart pounding in your ears. The hallway isn't where you left it. It curves now. Unnatural geometry, like a funhouse turned deadly. The walls whisper, but not in words, more like memories, faint laughter, crying, the squeak of shoes on tile. Ahead, another door, unmarked, heavy. A keypad blinks red, then green. You didn't touch it. The door hisses open. Inside is a room colder than the others. Not by temperature, but by feeling. The lights are harsh, sterile. No soft flickering here. Everything gleams with the shine of polished chrome and disinfectant. This is a procedure room. You recognize the table in the center, not unlike Delgado's chair, but horizontal, with tracks for the head, arms, and legs. Instruments hang above like silver spiders, each one with a purpose you don't want to understand. On the far wall, photos are pinned with surgical precision. Faces, dozens of them, some smiling, some empty-eyed, most with black bars across the eyes. A small plaque reads, "Test subjects cleared for overseas application." You look closer. A woman's face, striking, determined. Her photo's different. No bar, no smile, just a note. Agent compromised. Relocation failed. You wonder what relocation meant in this context. New name, new country, or a shallow grave in a forest. No one maps anymore. Mainstream fact time in 1973, amid growing paranoia after Watergate. The CIA officially destroyed many of its MKultra files, but some survived buried in budget memos, scribbled in margins, and locked in places just like this. The ones that do remain reveal a world where ethics were optional and consent was a luxury. You take one last look at the table. There's something unsettling about how clean it is, like it's still in use or waiting. As you step backward out of the room, the door slams shut on its own. You don't jump. You're getting used to this. Down the hall, a red light flickers, the kind that signals recording in progress. You follow it, each footstep echoing like a countdown. The door it leads to has no handle, just a slit, like a mail slot or a viewing window. You peer inside and see yourself, strapped into the chair, blinking up at the ceiling, lips moving silently. But you're standing here, aren't you? A soft buzz sounds from behind the wall, and a voice says, "Begin phase 2. You don't run. Your body is practically screaming to, but your legs feel like they're moving through syrup. Heavy, delayed, like you're watching someone else control them with an outdated remote. You step away from the window, your own reflection still strapped to the chair behind the glass. Is it really you, or a memory the building is feeding you? Like a sinister home video on loops. Whatever it is, you don't wait to see what phase 2 involves. The corridor ahead forks left into darkness, right toward a faint blue glow. You take the right, like a moth in search of something less threatening than complete blackness. The hum you've grown used to sharpens here. It's no longer background noise, it's alive, pulsing, syncing with your breath like a second heartbeat, not your own. And then you find it. Another room, but unlike the ones before. This one is filled with tanks, thick glass cylinders, fogged over, each as tall as you are. Inside, shapes, human shaped, still suspended. One of them shifts, you freeze, staring. The body doesn't move again, but it's enough. You inch closer to the tanks, one by one. Men, women, maybe young adults, it's hard to tell. All with shaved heads, electrodes dotting their scalps like strange constellations. A few have tattoos: military, gang, prison. No labels, no identifiers, just numbers etched on metal tags around their necks. A clipboard on the wall reads Theta Protocol. Active stasis subjects, 1 to 15. Mainstream fact coming at you. Theta isn't just a Greek letter, it's part of a brainwave frequency associated with deep hypnosis and memory access. Some MK Ultra offshoots allegedly aimed to create agents who could carry out missions with no conscious awareness, sleeper operatives whose memories could be erased, altered, or activated at will. Historians still argue whether the Theta program ever really moved beyond theory, but you're standing here, breathing the recycled air of the room that suggests otherwise. The tanks hum together like a choir made of static, and then one of them, Tank 7, pings. Its display panel flashes, stasis compromised, initiating recalibration. A hiss escapes the top of the glass. You don't wait for a face to press against the inside. You backpedal, turning into a hallway that's narrower than the last. You pass old vending machines covered in dust, labeled in Cyrillic, Russian. You realize this isn't just an American project. The Cold War had a way of turning science into horror on both sides of the Iron Curtain. Sometimes they even swapped notes. That's the part no one likes to mention. A corkboard comes into view. Faded photos are pinned to it, some official, some casual. Men in lab coats, smiling beside chalkboards filled with chemical formulas. Others, darker patients in mid-scream, needles buried deep in forearms. Test subjects holding up playing cards as if they're being forced to prove what day it is. You recognize a face among the scientists: Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, known as the poisoner-in-chief of the CIA. He ran MK Ultra, oversaw LSD testing on unwitting civilians, and allegedly sanctioned attempts at psychic warfare. He also practiced yoga and raised goats on a commune in retirement. Quirky little legacy, huh? One photo near the bottom shows a group of children, maybe 6 or 7 years old, sitting in front of a color wheel and smiling politely at the camera. The caption reads, Phase 0. Initiate with early testing. You feel a cold twist in your stomach. They started that young. You take a breath, just one, then move on. Another door. This one metal and thick, with a fingerprint reader beside it. You hesitate, but the light turns green before you even touch it. You push through. Inside is a monitoring center. Rows of screens, keyboards, audio reels spinning slowly. The kind of place where a handful of technicians could watch the world without ever stepping outside. The walls are papered with maps, color-coded zones, longitude and latitude coordinates, and something labeled EM fields, subject range. A reel-to-reel machine plays softly in the corner. You crank the volume. A voice hums to life. Male. Clear. Calm. Subject 42 entered Delta State at 0412. Theta commands initiated. Subject now believes handler is mother. Trigger word is orchid. Next test anti-interrogation protocol. You stare at the machine. Orchid, not a code name, a word. They used everyday language to fracture someone's perception. You begin to wonder how many people out there are still walking around with trigger phrases embedded like dormant mines in their minds. You slide open a cabinet drawer marked obsolete archives. Inside tapes, dozens, all labeled with dates, names, conditions. Some have notes like resulted in suicide or permanent memory hole. You pick one up. It's labeled Subject 81B, Visual Loop Test. You slot it into the reel player. The video flickers to life on one of the dusty monitors. It's a woman in a room. Alone, white walls, a single window. She walks back and forth, muttering. Then she stops, smiles, and stares directly at the camera. You lean in, and she mouths, "Silently, I know you're watching." Your fingers jerk back from the controls. The screen goes black. You check the timestamp. The tape is from 1963. You swallow and stand. There's something in your peripheral vision now. The mirror, it's not your reflection. The figure wears your clothes, stands like you, but its eyes glow faintly blue. You blink and it tilts its head, just slightly. You leave, fast, back through the hallway, past the tanks, past the flickering screens. But the building is no longer playing by the rules. Doors you came through are now walls. Corridors spiral. You see the same Coke bottle on the ground 3 times, like a game that's forgotten its own logic. You pause under a red emergency light. Try to breathe. A handwritten sign near the fire hose reads, "If lost, return to the black room." And beneath it, "You came from here." You didn't, did you? The world here doesn't bend, it folds. Inside itself, past and future meet in these rooms like old friends with matching scars. You push open the door marked Black Room. Inside, you're hit with absolute silence, not quiet. Silence, the kind that feels like pressure, like vacuum. The room is lined with black acoustic foam, thick and jagged, like the inside of a giant's lung. In the middle, a chair, plain, wooden, no restraints. You sit because you've come this far, because you don't know how to stop, because part of you has done this before. A screen flickers on across the room. Your name appears, then begin session. Recite memory. You open your mouth, and the words come, unbidden. I was 9. The lights were green. The doctor said it wouldn't hurt. And somewhere behind the wall, a reel begins to spin. The reel spins like it has waited decades just for this moment. That subtle whir so smooth, it almost fades into your pulse. You sit frozen, the words still warm in your mouth. The room breathing around you with its dense, padded silence for a moment. There's a weightless quality to it all, like you're floating inside someone else's memory, but you aren't. This is yours. You're not sure how you know, but you do, like a scent from childhood or a dream you've had so many times it feels like a rerun. And suddenly you remember the green lights, not metaphorical, literal, fluorescent tubes that buzzed and flickered overhead, a stale chemical tang in the air, someone humming off-key, a nurse, a handler. You weren't in a hospital. You were in this room. The walls were white then. The chair was taller. You swung your legs off the edge, trying not to cry. A man with a clipboard asked you to draw your dreams. Then he asked about the dog. You didn't have a dog, but you said yes, because that's what he wanted. That was the test. The screen ahead now displays a swirling pattern: blues, purples, yellows. It shifts just slightly too slowly, like an old Windows screensaver on tranquilizers. You feel your heartbeat syncing with the motion. The words on the screen change again. Test for visual recall, memory induction. And just like that, you're no longer in the chair. You're back in a hallway, except this one's different, warmer. Carpeting underfoot, patterned with gold vines. The air smells like cinnamon and dust. And somewhere, a record player warbles out Moon River. You walk past a series of doors. Each is marked with a name and a date. Thompson, April 1975. Blaine, Carter, 1969. You, access restricted. Your hand drifts toward your door. Locked, but you hear something behind it. Breathing, or maybe static. It's impossible to tell which anymore. You push on, shoes sinking softly into the carpet. You're aware now this is the inside of your own mind. Or maybe someone else's. Or maybe both. That's the trouble with the CIA's mind labs. Their work didn't end at drugs. LSD and mescaline were just the flashy headlines. The real horror sensory deprivation chambers. Hypnosis layered with suggestion. Feedback loops designed to trap a person inside their own thoughts until they couldn't tell the difference between imagination and reality. Some subjects never came back. Others seemed to until someone said the wrong word. Then their eyes would glaze, and they'd start speaking in voices they didn't recognize. One such case, historians point out, was linked to the 1954 Washington Crossing incident, when a Navy linguist tried to dive off a bridge because a nearby radio played a tone he'd been conditioned to associate with compulsory reset. But scholars still debate whether that incident was really CIA linked, or just one of those urban legends that stuck because it sounded too plausible not to be true. You pass a mirror, but your reflection lags. Just a half-second delay, enough to make your spine straighten. Then the reflection smiles. You don't. You move on. You enter another room, this one low-lit, with a velvet chaise lounge and a metronome ticking steadily on a glass table. At first, it looks like a therapist's office, but the details are off. Too sterile. No diploma on the wall. Just a small painting of an open field, and in the middle of that field, a single word: sleep. The tick of the metronome gets louder. Tick, tick, tick. Your vision narrows, not from fear, but from the slow pull of something familiar. Someone once taught you this rhythm. They said it would help you access the quiet places. Another memory stirs a woman's voice, measured, gentle, slightly British. When you hear the word orchid, you will forget this conversation. You will instead remember the picnic in the sun. That word again, orchid, you say it aloud, and instantly, the walls change. Now you're in a park. No warning. Green grass, birdsong, children laughing. You're holding a sandwich. You smell mustard. A woman is beside you, hair like wheat, eyes bright with fake sunshine. Isn't this nice, she says. But you know better now. You blink, hard, and the park wavers like heat on asphalt. You tear at the sandwich and see no filling, just white bread and cotton stuffing. The grass is paper. The birds are mechanical. Tiny fans hidden under fake feathers. You stand. Test failed, says the woman, no longer smiling. Reality reboots. The room folds into itself, like paper sucked through a shredder in reverse. You're back in the black room. Same chair, same screen, but the door's open now. You step through. The hallway is narrower than before, lit by overhead bulbs that buzz like angry wasps. The walls are papered with old CIA memos, haphazardly taped like wallpaper. You glance at a few. Project Artichoke. Can we get subjects to perform acts of violence without recollection? Phase Delta. Induced association through sensory layering multiple realities, stacked until subject collapses. Recommend moving test subjects 2330 to cold room. Lower survival rate acceptable. And then there's a photo. Blurry, but the face is familiar. Yours. The caption subject 28A. Residual fragments show signs of self-awareness. You stumble backward and trip over something soft. It's a file folder, thick, worn at the edges. Inside documents, test logs, sketches, pages scrawled with phrases like EMDR flicker sync, dream inducers, and neurological retracing via pattern disruption. One log stands out. Subject 28A responded negatively to recursion loop. Implanted memory of grandmother's kitchen failed to stabilize. Attempted breach. Exhibited awareness of conditioning patterns. Recommend immediate isolation. Your hand shakes as you read. This is not just a record. It's your record. The rest of the folder contains crude diagrams, one of a child's brain, color-coded, another of a chair, the same one you sat in, a map of the facility, and in red ink, remove all internal clocks. Subject can't track time if time isn't real. You look around. No clocks, no watches, no windows. Time really isn't real here. And then a sound. Soft, low, a voice, your own, echoing from around the corner, speaking a phrase you've never heard but understand instantly. I dreamed I was someone else, and then I woke up. But the dream kept talking. You take a step forward, because now you have to know, what else did they put in you? And more urgently, what did they take out? You don't remember walking this far. Yet here you are, deep inside the belly of the facility, where the air hums with something not quite electricity and not quite silence. The voice that sounded like yours has gone quiet, but its echo still clings to the walls. That's the thing about echoes in places like this. They're sticky. They follow you. Sometimes they lead. The hallway dead ends at a heavy steel door painted matte gray, like it's trying not to be noticed. There's no knob, just a handprint scanner. Instinctively, you raise your hand. It beeps. Green light. Access granted. The door creaks open, and a gust of cold air brushes your skin like a wet whisper. Inside, no people. Just one massive room circular, sterile, lit from above by a massive dome of one-way glass. You get the feeling someone's watching. No, scratch that. You know someone is watching. The sensation crawls over your spine like chilled honey. In the center of the room is what looks like a dentist's chair. Had a love child with a lie detector and a NASA launch console. Cords dangle from it. Electrodes. A head harness. A place to rest your arms that's suspiciously shaped like shackles. You step toward it. On the floor, faintly stenciled, MK Delta Simulation Chamber 3. Now, for anyone who's read into this stuff, Project M Cultra was just the tip of the brain-bending iceberg. MK Delta was its international cousin, the version the CIA could deny more easily. Think of it as the traveling circus of mind control. Overseas trials, less paperwork, fewer ethics. Mainstream historians generally agree MKUltra ran from 1953 to 1973. But MK Delta, that one just faded out of public record. No closure, no hearings, just poof, gone, and the people involved most disappeared, retired quietly, or died before anyone could ask too many questions. That's convenient. Too convenient. Some say. Fringe researchers argue that MK Delta A didn't end it. It just went digital, merged with early computer psychology experiments, behavioral firmware, stuff like CIA-backed simulations run through giant analog computers, using live participants. No goggles, just a room, a chair, and the kind of audio-visual loop that could mess with your sense of time, space, and, well, you. And now you're staring at the relic of that evolution. You run your hand along the chair. It's warm. Not metaphorically, someone used this recently. There's a clipboard nearby, a fresh page on top. It reads, Subject 28, a memory reconvergence, initiated day 6. Your breath hitches. You're still in the program. Worse, you never left. There's a hum that grows steadily louder. From the ceiling, a mechanism descends a headset with a cracked label on one side, reticular calibrator. Wires snake out from it like metal dreadlocks. You swear it pulses, like it's alive. A screen lights up on the far wall. No static. No test titles this time. Just words, insertion, phase origin, seed engaged. And then the voice returns. Your voice, only older, wearier, like someone who's seen things even nightmares would blush at. You're not here to remember, you're here to choose. Choose what the chair powers on with a low chime, like the startup sound of a Windows 95 computer designed by Kafka. Lights pulse in rhythmic patterns, not colors this time. Just white flashes, long, short, long again, Morse code. You don't know why you recognize it, but you do. WAKE. Someone wants you conscious, not just alert, awake. So you sit, because you have to know. Electrodes press to your temples. A screen swings in front of your face. It displays a photo, a house, 2-story, white fence, American flag drooping in the breeze, your childhood home, or what you think is your childhood home. A low beep, then another image, a dog, rust-colored. One ear flopped forward. You feel warmth in your chest, then pain, then nothing. A tone, then a flash, then a woman's face, older, worried. You reach for her name, but it's just smoke in your mind. Another tone, higher. Another image. You, in a hospital gown, writing equations on a whiteboard. There's something wrong with the equations they loop, like Mobius strips made of numbers. The screen now shows a single word, truth, and a question beneath it. Was this ever voluntary? That's the gut punch, isn't it? Because somewhere along the line, this wasn't about national security or Cold War paranoia or stopping the Soviets from melting soldiers' brains with psychic spies. It was about control. It was always about control. Control over the mind. Over memory? Over identity? Historians still argue whether the CIA's deeper programs were designed to create super spies, walking sleeper agents, or simply blank slates people who could be rewritten, repurposed, reassigned. Others say it was an experiment in spiritual warfare, that the real goal was to erase the ego entirely, create the zero self. One of the memos you glimpsed earlier mentioned the Mandala Protocol, a fringe idea about placing human consciousness in looped environments until all external personality traits dissolved. You wouldn't remember who you were, only what they told you. And now you realize what this place really is. Not a prison, not even a lab. It's a mirror, and they've been watching to see how long it takes you to recognize your own reflection. A hiss behind you. The headset releases. The screen goes dark. And then, behind the wall, something clicks. A door slides open. Cool air pours in. You step through and find yourself back in the hallway. Only it's different now. There's color in the walls. A ticking clock on the far side. You reach it in 5 steps, and the time 11:11. Make a wish. Right. Only you don't. You just stare, because on the wall beside the clock is a full-length mirror. You walk to it. Your reflection stares back. Only this time, it speaks. We're almost done. One more loop. Then you'll remember everything. It lifts its hand. You lift yours. It points left. You follow the motion, and there it is. A door you've never seen before. On it, the plaque reads, Deep Vault, Last Recording. The air around it buzzes like bees in an oil drum. And inside may be the truth. Maybe the real you. Or maybe just another room. Another loop. Either way, you reach for the handle. The door swings open with a weight you feel in your shoulders. Not just a creak or groan, this one exhales, like it's been holding its breath for decades. The room beyond is dim, lit only by soft blue panels embedded into the floor, each one glowing like bioluminescent jellyfish. Your footsteps make no sound here, not even the slight tap of heel against tile. Just a silence. Sterile, thick silence. The ceiling slopes inward like the inside of a geode. Reflective and faceted. You see fragments of yourself, an eye here, a twisted mouth there. None of them quite you. You walk forward. You can't not. Then you see it. At the center of the room is a raised platform, round and metallic, surrounded by 6 vertical glass pods. Inside each pod is a person, and each one is you. Different clothes, different postures, different expressions. One looks scared, one angry, one serene, one slumped in despair, one with a subtle smile, almost conspiratorial. And the last, he's staring directly at you. Not the pod, not the wall. You flinch. The platform lights up. A voice begins to speak, this time clearly. CIA, clipped and emotionless, like an old mission reel. Delta File 7 observational record initiated. Subject, Echo 6. You try to back up, but the floor rises beneath you. The platform is moving, slowly, ascending. The pods rotate in a lazy circle around you, a carousel of selves. The voice continues. In advanced iterations of echo loop immersion, subjects report degrees of memory overlap, identity erosion, and paradox cognition. Goal-induced convergent self-state, results pending. What does that mean? You want to ask, you want to scream, but your mouth won't move. The mirror self you saw before, he's now inside the glass. His eyes track yours as the others rotate. It's like watching a dream of yourself you forgot to have. Here's the historical truth bomb to anchor all this by the late 60s. Declassified documents confirm the CIA had developed a system called Project Monarch. Officially never existed. Unofficially, it's the darling of conspiracy theorists and fringe academics. Monarch was supposedly the next evolution after MKUltra, a project aimed not just at mind control, but at total psychological reconstruction, tabula rasa humans, imprinted from the ground up. Think conditioning meets stagecraft, meets narrative manipulation. But here's the kicker. Some believe Monarch wasn't about controlling people in the real world. It was about building controllable people in simulated realities. Digital cages with analog locks. Sound familiar? The pods stop rotating. The mirror, you begins to speak not aloud, but straight into your mind. You remember now, don't you? You do. Not all of it, but flashes. The first test, age 19, you volunteered. Sure, but after how many nights of subtle coercion, the letter that said you were chosen, the voice that said you could change the world, the technician who called you brave just before they inserted the IV, the cold metal, the disorientation, the moment when you thought you'd gone blind, but it was just darkness, perfect, engineered darkness. Back then, you thought it was about patriotism, but then came the scripts. They made you repeat stories, backgrounds, origins, as if your life was a role you were auditioning for. They changed things, slightly, every loop. One version, you had a sister; in another, a military father; in another, you drowned at age 5 and were brought back. And when you asked which was true, they just smiled, said, "Does it matter?" One sensory detail comes crashing back. Now cinnamon. Every time they rewrote your identity, they diffused the room with cinnamon oil. Pleasant, familiar, anchoring. But now you gag at the memory of it. Like a lie you once loved. The voice returns. Last recording in progress. Confirm identity echo 6. You don't respond. Confirm identity echo 6. You clench your fists. You shake your head. You whisper, "I'm not him anymore." A hiss hydraulics. The pods begin to open, one by one. You brace for movement. But none of the other yous step forward. They just stand, frozen, eyes open, unblinking, except one. The smiling version walks forward. You lock eyes. He nods. Then he says, softly, "Good, you passed." Before you can ask what that means, the lights go dark. All of them. You hear footsteps, not your own, a low chuckle. And then you're ready for the vault. You try to speak, but your throat is dry sand. Instead, you move, drawn toward a door you hadn't noticed before, hidden behind the platform. It slides open with a hiss. Inside another hallway, this one lined with plaques. You read the names as you pass. Echo 1 deceased. Echo 2 degraded. Echo 3 lost. Echo 4 reassigned. Echo 5 compromised. Echo 6 active. At the end of the hallway, a plaque still covered in black cloth. A hand reaches out from the darkness and lifts it away. It says Echo 7 initiating. Wait, that's you. And suddenly it clicks. This isn't about breaking you down. It's about spawning the next iteration. You're not the experiment anymore. You're the prototype, and someone somewhere is watching how far you'll go before you crack. Historians still argue whether MK Ultra was a failure of oversight or a runaway program that exceeded its design. But here, you see the truth for yourself. These programs weren't shut down. They mutated, and you're the living proof. The voice speaks one last time, closer now, not in your head, but behind your ear. They think you're still inside the loop. Let them. The air hums. Lights return. You're standing alone again. No pods. No platform. Just a camera mounted in the corner, blinking red. A microphone descends. You step up to it and say, "I remember everything." The red light stops blinking, and the floor begins to descend. The floor descends slowly, like an elevator made for ghosts. The soft hum below your feet almost lulls you into a trance until you notice the walls around you are shifting, not physically, but visually. Screens embedded in the panels flicker to life, showing grainy footage that morphs with each passing second. Home videos, maybe, but not of you. You see a girl playing piano, a boy solving a Rubik's Cube in record time, a woman in military uniform crying in a white-walled office, a man drawing spirals on a notepad until his fingers bleed. Then you, sitting in a chair, head bowed, electrodes fastened tight to your scalp. The screen pauses, zooms in. You're saying something. The audio crackles on. They told me I was the sixth, but I think I was the first. The screen goes black again. You reach the bottom. The chamber opens into what can only be described as a vault, but not the kind you imagined. No rows of gold bars, no secret scrolls, just shelves, dozens of them, each one lined with identical black cassette tapes. Every tape is labeled with white marker pen. Echo 1, Session 1, Echo 1, Session 2, Echo 6, Final, Echo 7, Initiate. You find the one marked with today's date. It's already warm. This is the CIA's deepest record, a library of you. Every loop, every reset, every scripted identity. Welcome to the audio archive of the mind. The air here smells faintly metallic, like old film reels and forgotten memories. You take a deep breath. The scent is dry, but somehow comforting. It smells like something finished. On the far wall, you see a player, a reel-to-reel machine hooked into a desk. The wood aged and scratched from use. You slide the Echo 7 tape in, hit play, static, then your voice. If you're listening, it means you passed. It's eerie. Your voice is calm, but older, like you've lived through several endings already. You're not the original. None of us are, but you're closer than most. You retained the spine of memory. You sit down, transfixed. Here's what they won't tell you. MKUltra wasn't a failure. It worked. Too well. So they split it into layers. MK Search, MK Naomi, MK Delta, Monarch. Each one a disguise. Each one another story to hide behind. You grip the desk. It feels sturdy, real, solid in a way that nothing else has felt for hours. By the time they reached us, the Echo series, they weren't interested in obedience anymore. They wanted something more durable, a memory lattice, a personality scaffold that could carry the load across resets. That's you. That's what you are. They tried it with war veterans first, then orphans, then volunteers, Now it's mostly data-borne entities, digital scaffolding with organic hosting. You're the last hybrid test. You stare at your hands. They look normal, but you wonder now how much of you is actually you. Historians still argue whether the CIA ever truly ended its mind control pursuits, or simply handed the tech off to defense contractors, black sites, Silicon Valley think tanks. The lines between surveillance, suggestion, and simulation got blurry in the late 2000s. Some believe today's recommendation algorithms trace their lineage straight back to M. Coltra's predictive behavior models. But this is no algorithm. This is legacy. And your voice continues. There's one more door. The vault within the vault. Behind it, your last file. You'll have to decide whether to play it. You glance behind you, and sure enough, there it is. A single metal door, smaller than the others. Not marked, no handle, just a slit, a tape slot. Your body moves before you can think. You take the Echo 7 reel, walk toward the door, and slide it in. A hiss, then a click, then music, soft, almost lullaby-like, a child humming. Off-key, it fills the space like warm water in a bath. The door slides open. You step in. It's a small chamber, just one chair, a cracked mirror, and another tape machine. On the seat, a folder. You pick it up, flip it open. Inside, you see your birth certificate, your military file, your psych evaluations, all redacted, but on the last page, in perfect ink, subject Echo 7, observed to retain high self-awareness through multiple identity strips, recommended for archival, not deployment. You pause. They weren't trying to erase you. They were trying to keep you, not as a weapon, not even as an agent, as a story, a file they could revisit when they needed to remember how far they went, how far they could go. And that's the real horror, isn't it? Not that they broke your mind, but that they saved it. You run your fingers along the folder's edge. There's a small handwritten note on the back. If you find this, write your own ending. The tape stops spinning. You close the folder, and for the first time since the beginning, you feel something new. Stillness, like the loop has stopped. Or maybe, just maybe, you've stepped outside of it. You turn to leave the vault, and when you do, nothing stops you. No alarms, no voice in your head, just your footsteps, echoing softly in the hallway as the lights dim behind you. But then, as you approach the exit tunnel, a final screen flickers on. One sentence, written in static-laced font. Or did you choose this? And you laugh, because that's the question, isn't it? You always thought you were the lab rat, but maybe you were the scientist. Maybe you built this loop. Maybe you needed to forget. And now you remember, but you still don't know why. You step through the last corridor like you've just woken from a dream you didn't know you were having. The walls are smoother here. No more flickering monitors. No mirrored illusions. No hidden doors breathing behind your back. Just a stone. Cold. Rough. Real. The kind of hallway built to be forgotten. You follow the path as it slopes upward, just slightly. Your calves burn with each step. A quiet reminder that you still have a body. The faint sound of humming returns, not music this time, not the eerie lullabies from before, just air, moving through vents like breath through lungs. The vault is alive, but it's growing quiet, winding down, as if it knows your time here is almost over. Then, up ahead, light. Not neon, not artificial. Sunlight. You blink. After everything you've seen, sunlight feels like a betrayal. It shouldn't be this easy. Right after tapes and mirrors and looping versions of yourself, you expected some final test, a psychic gauntlet, a climactic confrontation with a clipboard-wielding scientist offering you 2 pills, one red, one blue, but no, just a simple concrete stairwell leading to the surface. You climb, each footstep rings in your ears. There's no soundtrack here, no narration, just the rhythm of your movement and the faint warmth of air that doesn't reek of metal and cinnamon oil. One more step. You push open a steel hatch. It groans like it's never been opened from the inside before. Outside a field, golden grass, rolling hills, no buildings in sight, just the hush of wind, birdsong, and somehow a sense of long-lost nostalgia. The kind of open space that reminds you of childhood road trips, gas station snacks, and staring out the window while your parents argued about directions. But then something catches your eye, a figure standing at the edge of the tree line. It's not moving. You walk toward it, cautiously, like the memory of a dream fading into your morning thoughts. As you draw closer, you see it's another version of you, older, weathered, wearing a jacket you've never seen but instantly recognize. He doesn't speak, just nods, then holds out something small, a cassette tape. You take it, no label, just black plastic and the faint indent of use. And then he turns, walks into the trees, vanishes. You're left standing in a field holding the final piece of this strange, looping puzzle. You flip the tape over in your hand. No clue what's on it, no instructions, but something in your chest knows this wasn't a test. It was a handoff, a torch, passed, and here comes the real mainstream history hook for you to chew on while the wind tugs gently at your sleeves. The CIA formally ended MKUltra in 1973, or so they said. Senate hearings followed in 1975. Senator Frank Church, looking visibly disturbed as he questioned officials on how many Americans had been subjected to mind control experiments without consent. But that's where the record ends. Officially, unofficially, the experiments continued. Not in labs, not with LSD and electroshock, but in the quiet study of influence, media, social conditioning, simulation theory. They just got smarter at hiding it. Theories emerged: Project Artichoke, Bluebird, Stargate. Some, like remote viewing, entered pop culture, others buried deeper, too disturbing even for conspiracy forums. Stories of induced multiple personalities, of psychological marionettes, of people who weren't just brainwashed but rebooted. You realize now you weren't a victim of some single experiment. You were the archive of all of them, a living repository of failures, half-truths, and the occasional success. The CIA didn't break you. They stored you, and for some reason, they let you walk out. Maybe they think you'll loop back again. Maybe that's part of the program. Or maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to stay in the vault at all. You sit down in the field, cassette in hand, no player, no tools, nothing but sky and breeze, and the possibility of choice. You wonder if you play the tape, will it start again? Will the world flicker and reset? Will you find yourself back in that chair, cinnamon in the air, the voice repeating, Echo 7 confirm identity? Or will the tape end something? You don't press play, not yet. You hold it against your chest and lie back, letting the wind tickle your ears like an old lullaby. And in that moment, something soft and surprising settles over you. Peace. You've lived this story too many times to fear its end, and whatever comes next, you'll choose it, even if the choice was made for you, even if it's part of the program, especially then, because sometimes the only real freedom is knowing the loop exists and stepping outside it anyway, just for a moment, just to see the sky. The grass whispers against your skin, slow and calming, like soft linen sliding across sun-warmed sheets. Above you, the clouds move with measured grace, painting the sky in streaks of gold and lavender. You hear the rustling of trees in the distance, the occasional chirp of a bird overhead, and your own heartbeat steady now, no longer racing. You close your eyes. The tape in your hand grows cool, like a pebble worn smooth by time. You don't need to listen to it tonight. Maybe you never will. Sometimes, it's enough just to know a story has a final page, even if you never turn to read it. The wind brushes over your face again, slower now, like the hush of a blanket being drawn up to your chin. Inhale, exhale. The vault is behind you. The sky is above you. And your memories, real or not, are yours now. Every strange corridor, every shadowed room, every version of yourself staring back from behind glass. They're all part of your tale, stitched into your thoughts like threads in a patchwork quilt. The questions may remain unanswered, but the need to chase them that fades with each passing breeze. So let it go. Let the hush settle. Let your mind slow down, like old tape reels spinning to a stop. Tonight, you sleep knowing the loop won't hold you. Not if you don't let it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the true escape. The story is over. See you tomorrow night. Sweet dreams.